pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's do roll call. Ms. Kuzer, especially since Mr. McDonald is on the phone, I guess.
Okay. Mrs. Reeker? Mr. McDonald?
Here.
Mrs. Bachtel?
Here.
Mrs. Strite? Here. Dr. Royer? Here. Mr. Wenger?
Here.
Mrs. Zimmerman?
Here.
Mrs. Sullivan? Here. And Mrs. Harrell?
Here. Okay, looking at our agenda, Dr. Klein, there's no additions to the one that we've been given, is that correct?
No, that's correct.
Now, I would like to point out that because we started at 4:30 and we got another meeting when we're all done here, so public comment is only listed prior to our meeting. So if anybody would like to speak, please speak up at the spot that's on the agenda, which is number 4 on our agenda. Okay, so looking at that, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, next item is the minutes. Anybody have any issues with the minutes from last meeting? If not, do we have a motion for the approval of the minutes?
Move to approve. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, now it's time for public comment. So anyone who would like to speak, please come up and state your name, your address, and try to limit your comments, please, to 5 minutes. Anybody who's ready? Okay.
Yes, how you doing? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
My name is Matias Figueroa. Address is 11606 Honey Run Lane. I just had a couple of questions. How will the day-to-day operations allow classrooms to have social distancing? How will the state provide districts more flexibility regarding instructional days? And how will they disinfect the playground equipment in between children going to play outside? And why is it that the school is saying that the masks are not going to be required, when through the state right now it is a mandate anyways?
Correct.
That's all I have.
Okay, and we don't always respond to, this is just for you guys to speak, but in this case, Dr. Klein would like to respond
Yeah,
to.
I want to make sure the mask
Sure.
is clear. The state has mandated. Yeah, when we did the plan, it changed almost at the same time. So we didn't go back and make a lot of changes, but we tried to make sure it was clear that the district did not, in the original plan, the district did not require the masks. However, the state has mandated it, and we have to follow that.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Yes, ma'am, come on up.
Hi, I'm Audrey Boyd, 11556 Old Forge Road. I am a mother of a graduate this year that did not do a survey and was told by the principal that my son cannot be at the graduation and that he was irresponsible. My thing is, I do not care if I'm there. I mean, I'd love to be there, but I think all graduates should have the right to be able to be in graduation after everything they've already lost this year. And I know there are several parents that couldn't be here, and they feel the same way, and I understand my son did not do the survey. However, he doesn't sit on social media. He's not on Facebook, he's not on Twitter, he's not that kind of kid. He leaves for work at 4 a.m., and he doesn't get home till 8 or 9 p.m. So he's not irresponsible. He's working very hard for a college education. And I do wish that something can be done to where he can walk and get his diploma.
Okay, and
Yeah, I believe Mr. Pappas has been in contact with you today and you responded. So we
Well,
did
the
make-
reason I came anyways is because after Mr. Pappas wrote me, I got one letter from a board member that said that they would recommend for me to be here and talk about it. So that's why
Okay.
I came. I just,
Okay.
you know,
Sure, no, and we did receive some additional phone calls. I believe they all went to Dr. Klein's office, and they were asked as of Thursday afternoon to reach out to families to indicate that, you know, regardless of whether or not they answered the survey, that we should allow any learner, any parent at this point to be able to participate. So we did rectify that situation.
And
Okay, thank
given
you.
the changes that the governor made, we have to make changes to the graduation ceremony. So I think with that given, it makes sense to reach it to allow the parents to be able to have their kids participate if they want.
okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Gaudentia Benshop. I have two students going in. Oh, my address is 11937 Gear Road. I have two little ones going to school here soon. The one is in kindergarten. My question is, the bus ride, are they required for them to sanitize their hand before they get in the bus or get their temperature before they get in the bus?
You want to talk about that one too?
Sure. We are not requiring temperatures before they get on the bus or hand sanitizing. However, there will be a lot of cleaning going on in the buses between runs, and we're also going to be putting down the windows. One of the concerns we have with requiring, and I apologize if it's hard to hear me, excuse me. One of the concerns we have for having the temperatures taken is before they get on the bus is because if a child, and my understanding is that you can have a temperature and not actually have the disease and such, but the other part of it is if a child gets on, a 6-7-year-old goes to the bus and the bus driver takes their temperature and the bus driver says to the child, you can't get on, and you know, and the child says, but my mommy's not home, she left for work, whatever it might be, then that could create some issues for us. So that is part of why our decision, that's just part of it, for not doing that.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
With it, we are asking parents to do as much screening at home prior to sending their kids in. We know it's not a perfect system that way, but we are asking parents to do the screening coming before the child comes in.
Okay.
And obviously, if there are obvious reasons that the child is sick, then the school will deal with that at that point.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name's John Powell at 130 West 2nd Street here in Waynesboro. I came today because I really thought it's my first time, so if there was a way to see what was on the schedule, I didn't notice it. I was kind of hoping it'd be a continuation of your last meeting. I don't feel Borough strong. I feel Borough scared. I feel Borough sad. I don't feel Borough strong. I had an 11th grader starting 11th grade, a young lady starting 11th grade, and a young man starting 5th grade. Unfortunately, they won't be starting here. I'm going to go ahead and put them into charter or cyber school. This virus isn't stopping at the border, folks, and I see a lot of different school districts going virtual, doing things differently than what I see here. I was always an old school guy. I thought public tax money should stay in public schools. I wasn't for charters. I wasn't for cyber schools, but I'm also a parent, and I don't always have the luxury of principals. So according because I know you've got things you want to talk about, I'm going to try to keep it simple. My kids aren't going to be coming back to this school district that I graduated from, my wife, my father, my mother. We're going to do cyber because we're afraid. We don't like the way the plans are set up. I know a lot of other parents are worried, teachers are worried, staff's worried. I just wanted to let you guys know that, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
I want to make sure I reach out and say that the district is offering various options for parents. We're trying to give them a little more of a choice. So there is an in-school option, but there's also a cyber option, and we also have a hybrid option.
Well, we can debate if you're using the word hybrid correctly compared like other school districts that are doing like 2 days a week, 3 days off. I'm not going to sit here and argue about it, but the distance learning, which, if I'm wrong, please correct me, is really no different than what we saw at the end of the school year. Maybe more structured, maybe better put together. But that seemed like busy work to me. It didn't seem like interaction with the teacher, being able to ask questions, get support. They're the things that I noticed differently. If that's going to be there this time around, if we're going to have like cyber classes with a teacher, on time, be here on the computer at this time, hey, we can talk. But I'm sorry, the distance learning stuff, that helped keep the kids in doing something at the end of the school year when we all got slammed with this. I don't see how you can do a whole school year like that. I just don't.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. The cyber option we have is called Franklin Virtual Academy. It's been in place for some time, and it is an option that kids have had for a number of years. And it is taught by teachers, some of our teachers. We have teachers of records on those. And it operates a little different than what we offered in the spring. We were the only district in the area to really go with a full try of any kind of instruction. Everyone else really just put stuff out on the website and didn't follow through. We did try, but we knew we weren't very good. But I've always had the Franklin virtual option. And I want to make sure that everyone knows that is still an option for parents that choose for a cyber option. It's not what you saw in the spring.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've looked at like 14, 15 different cyber schools, and I've never seen this Franklin one pop up in any of my searches.
It's only Franklin County. We've
Well,
had it for some time.
I'll give it a consideration. I've looked at, CCA and a couple different ones. I'm sure you've been down through the list. You know the list by heart. So I'll check it out. But, yeah, I just want to know my kids, at least for now, will not walk through those doors. I'm sorry.
And that's, I think, why the board was in favor of this, is because of the options, of which that is one, the total online, not just the one that we are calling a hybrid, as well as the coming to school.
Is there any comments to why your plans are kind of so much different than some of the other districts that are very close to us that are doing virtual only? Nobody coming in the doors at first?
Well, we choose what we think is best for our community. I will say that Tuscarora and Fanet Metal are doing pretty much what we are. So they're not right next door, but they're pretty close. So that would be my answer to that question, is we're doing what we think is best for our community. So.
You can't necessarily say that those two school districts are doing what we are doing, because we do not know their exact plans.
Just from my conversations with those superintendents, they aren't exactly, but they're very similar. They're coming with a full return.
It's different. It's not the same. Thank you, Mr. Powell, for your comments.
Anyone else like to speak today for public comment? Okay, if not, then we'll go into our agenda, which starts with personnel. Dr. Sternerheim.
Okay, I'd like to direct your attention to the personnel items. Also, I have one additional item as a handout. If you want, Mrs. Zimmerman, if you could please pass those. My apologies, I need to log on.
Microphones, everybody, please.
We're handing out a handout.
Handing out a handout.
Well, it's a personnel addition, correct.
Okay.
Anything to say there, Dr. Sternheim, or you want us to move forward? You want to talk about it at all?
No, I'm getting to my agenda. My
Okay.
apologies.
Okay.
All right, so I'd like to direct your attention to the two personnel items that are listed in your board docs. There is resignation of support staff, appointment of extracurricular staff, request for leave, with the exception of the one individual that we discussed during executive session. I'm not sure how the best way is to phrase that. There's an additional personnel listing for resignation of support staff, request for leave, additional reassignments of professional staff as a result of the Title I funding, and then the listing of teachers who were furloughed earlier this summer, and the reinstatement of their positions in the Waynesbury School District, appointment of coaching staff, appointment of substitute support staff, and then one additional appointment of coaching staff. Recommendation is to approve as listed.
Motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any questions for Dr. Sternheim?
I have a question.
Okay.
The handout that you just, inserted, there's one position that says documentation is pending. How can we okay that?
That's, request for a medical leave.
It's at the bottom. Keep
And
scrolling
how
on the second
can we
personnel
approve
list.
something that has documentation that's pending?
I guess because the effective date is not until August 11th, so we have some time and we won't have another board meeting prior to that. So, I mean, obviously, if the documentation does not,
Come back, it's not approved.
it's not approved if the documentation is not presented.
Is that okay, Dr. Klein?
Yeah, I think as long as we get that documentation, because if we don't get it, then we can't, then it won't go through.
That needs to be clearly stated.
That's what I'm looking at right now.
Dr. Sternheim, so what we're approving here on the professional staff is the intervention specialist.
That is correct.
Oh, that's what we're looking at.
I'm just gonna say I have a question as to, depending upon how this reopening of school looks. I just have a concern as how these positions will be utilized. I didn't realize they were gonna be on the agenda this evening, because I
So
didn't
you're-
have it ahead of time.
So you're,
I
I'm sorry,
looked
Dr.
earlier
White.
and they were not there to be seen. I don't know what time they appeared.
So
Yeah,
they
I'm-
were referenced in the Friday folder. We just finished the interviews. The purpose of this board meeting was to approve personnel, and specifically the intervention specialists.
Oh, I misunderstood. I thought it was to approve the position itself. I didn't know that we were approving
Because
people in the position tonight. I misunderstood that.
Well, I guess things have changed since the last meeting too.
Now, Dr. Roy, your concern is that if, for whatever reason, if schools got closed down, that what would these people do?
Right.
Yeah.
There's no classrooms to work in.
Okay.
And we're talking about 5 professionals.
Sure, I mean, they are still responsible for students in terms of an instruction, and actually, the interesting thing is that when we talked about what we did in the spring, students were asked to, meet with their regular teacher and then the intervention specialist, and it was not always well attended. We were trying to think a little bit outside the box, depending on how things happen. That these are, in some cases, well, at this point, probably our very neediest students that really need whatever type of academic support, whether it be math, reading, or ELA, and we would have to try to be as creative as possible to make sure that they are getting the more one-on-one or even small group. I mean, even small group in our traditional school environment is going to continue to be a challenge. So we have to continue to be creative in how we're servicing these students.
Mrs. Harold, I'm going to abstain for this.
Well, we could pull it out. We can pull out those appointments and have it as a separate vote. Would you prefer that?
I have another question, and that is, if we're opening with a full opening, wouldn't it make sense to have as few people around the kids as possible? Like, people in and out of classrooms and that kind of thing, is that something that we should be looking at?
Well, I would think it would have something to do with fulfilling the IEPs.
Well,
For
these would be
several
Title
reasons.
Special ed
students.
people.
Oh, these are just Title I people?
Yeah, these are just,
Okay,
these are regular ed kids.
okay.
I mean, I think that the job description was approved at the last board meeting. I thought I articulated that we were interviewing.
My issue is that things have changed. Okay, things have changed since we had at that time there was not any. At that time it was prior, I think, to July 1. The mask restriction was not in place. The required social distancing wasn't in place. Again, given the growing concerns, that I'm hearing, which I hope are not true, that schools may not reopen. And again, this is a personnel issue, so I'm not comfortable saying anything else.
Sure, I
unless we go into
understand.
exec session. But I think that this is, 5 positions again, and I understand the need for intervention.
Yeah, I guess
I
thought.
just can't say anything more about my concerns unless we're in an exec session. So I'm just going to abstain on the grounds I didn't have the, didn't have the information till today.
Okay. So you, but the question is still, do you want to pull it out so you can vote on the other issues, but not this group of people? Do you want to pull the furloughed people as the Title I people as a separate vote? That way you could participate in the vote for the other. Or you can abstain to the whole thing. That's your choice. I'm just offering that.
I don't know.
Well,
I think part of it was a timing perspective when we were looking at starting school. We didn't have another board meeting until August 11th,
Right.
and that's why we're here today. I think where everything changed was unfortunately didn't we just meet last Tuesday?
correct.
And then right after that is when the governor, everything sort of changed right after, but this was still in motion. So this wasn't from July, this was from basically last Tuesday and then the meeting, July 8th meeting.
But when we talked about these positions, there wasn't even a rumor of not opening.
Did I miss that at this meeting?
No.
Okay.
At the last meeting.
No, she's just saying
Okay.
that we weren't considering that,
weren't
but now we
considering
are.
Not
So-
opening.
Well, I'm not,
on
but
the
apparently
19th.
some people are.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I just have I don't feel it's appropriate for me to say what I'm gonna say in a public meeting.
Yeah.
Because it involves the other people, so maybe we could have a short exec session. I mean, we started to talk about this and Dr. Sternheim wasn't in the room.
Okay.
Not blaming you.
No, that's fine.
But
I was making
that
copies.
was one of the things we wanted to talk about in exec session tonight. I think it was on your list.
Well, I think I think it's significant. We're talking about 5 positions here. We're talking about,
And there are other
And-
implications. I think it would
Right.
be helpful.
All right,
if we
so
could discuss.
we're going to go into executive session then for hopefully a short amount of time. I guess we will go to the
Sure.
conference room and we will be back after a short adjournment. Jump to there. 1, 2, 3.
That I needed to make a correction regarding a position, Mr. Holtzman.
Sure.
Teachers are starting.
Faye Kimmons is a cleaner, and she's remaining a cleaner. She's just picking up those additional hours. It was just the new assignment description is incorrect. So she's a cleaner currently, and she's staying a cleaner.
Any questions on that?
19, 20, 21. Kids are here. Sorry about that.
That would be on
31.
the first listing of personnel on the very bottom.
And then Wednesdays would be. No, we have a motion. We're just clarifying.
I was just waiting, I didn't. Recommendation is to approve as listed.
Okay. All right, so
with
we've had the
exception-
motion.
there's 2 exceptions.
We've had the second. Is Mr. McDonald back with us?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so, with that, all those in favor of approving the personnel with, the additions that Dr. Sternheim talked about, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay. Okay, 1 no, and this is popping up, I don't see it. Okay, so the motion passes to approve the personnel
Somebody-
list.
Can we know what the changes were, or is it as written?
Do you have all the sheets of there was nothing different.
I didn't know if you made any changes.
Yeah, no. That position were you talking about that when I was talking?
The
to Mr.
cleaner.
Okay,
That, but the interventionists and all that stuff.
that's
was the first.
that's as was, correct.
Okay, thank
Yep, yep.
But
There was a change.
what I there was one change reference regarding a leave
Okay.
that was,
We held off.
It was not voted
It
on.
was tabled.
it was,
Okay. How did the vote clarify that?
No.
Her motion did.
I said that I was
What-
referencing trying to maintain confidentiality, and I said with the exception of the leave that we discussed during executive session.
Which can be clarified, correct, at the end of the meeting to Mrs. Rooney?
Sure.
As WAA, yes. Okay, yeah, okay. Okay, all right. Where are we? Okay. Okay, next issue is graduation. Dr. Klein.
Okay.
I guess it's Dr. Klein.
I'm gonna actually turn over to Dr. Sterling.
Okay,
Sure.
Dr. Sternberg.
So in light of things that are moving relatively quickly, we were fully anticipating the ability to execute a outside graduation with parents in attendance at our stadium. In light of the requirements of 250 outside and 25 inside, the high school administration has worked very quickly to reevaluate the situation and has a recommendation, and I believe Mr. Pappas had emailed all board members this afternoon. Basically, it's a staggered approach utilizing our auditorium, still involving families. I believe we're going to be able to honor 4 family members and the graduate. We will be utilizing an opportunity for them to sign up to basically be awarded their diploma on the stage in the Oyer auditorium with their family present. And over a period of time, I believe we have, I gave my last handout to someone, over 2 days or maybe one extended day on the 28th. Is it only on the 28th, or did we figure out we could? At this point, we have 218 graduates who are indicated they were going to participate in graduation, but this move was necessary in order to accommodate the new restrictions for both outdoor and indoor. So we're hopeful that, looks like we're going to be able to do it the 28th. I thought it was the 28th and the 29th from 3 o'clock to 7:45. So this additional information will be shared out to families via a Borough Blast as well as emails, and then going to make sure that the families each receive 4 tickets for graduation. Yes, Dr. Royer.
So, I have a question. You
Sure.
may have graduates in the original survey that don't want to come now because it's not the whole spiel. And you may have graduates that were afraid to come before because they didn't want to be in a big group that are willing to come now. So, the game's totally changed. So, are we opening this up? I mean, we had a couple problems, come up already where people didn't get the survey or didn't get the word. I mean, it's now a very different graduation.
Okay. So you're asking that we re-survey the
Well, I don't know, but I'm thinking that there could be both scenarios. I think there's some kids that are gonna say, heck with it, I wanted to just do the whole big thing and see my friends and all that, and I don't wanna do this now.
Okay.
But I also think there might be some whose families weren't comfortable coming to the big graduation that may, I don't know.
I agree, it should be offered to all people because it has changed.
Okay.
I mean, obviously that means we could have a lot more and it could be 6 hours instead of 4.
And several people feel like they missed an opportunity or they got skipped or they're still wondering and waiting.
Sure. So what I will do is I will ask the high school.
Again, I'm just one person. I think, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I just don't think we wanna we don't wanna have anyone say, I would have come if I had known it wasn't going to be
outside
600 people.
Exactly.
I would also like to suggest, I think the survey was sent to graduates, to seniors, graduating seniors and not their parents. I would like to see this copied to parents as well.
And I can't
And a
hear you,
Borough
sorry.
Blast. Borough
She's
Blast.
saying
Yeah,
that
so
it only went to
that, so
kids.
that,
She thinks it should go
you
to
know,
parents,
not
too.
only the students get the word, but also the parents get the word.
Okay.
I don't know, how do you do that?
I don't know, but we'll work through it.
I guess you'd have, I mean, the only thing you can really do, Linda, I think is a Borough Blast, and a lot of people click those off, so,
I think at least we made the effort.
yeah.
But
We were planning on obviously sharing this with the newspaper pending the board has the opportunity to review it. So, I mean, Mr. Pappas can do the Borough Blast, he can put it on the website. I don't, in terms of resurveying, I guess the idea would be then maybe people who did want to go outside no longer are planning on attending.
Right.
So I would imagine those people may respond and say we're no longer, but you're saying I should survey the entire class again with this new plan.
I realize it puts another kink in it, and it might be more work for admin, and I apologize for that, but I just think it's, at this point in time, we've been doing it, not doing it, doing it, not doing it, there's been all these changes.
Well, they have to get a time to come, right? If they're
Yes.
gonna, so you're
So-
pretty much calling everybody anyway.
Right.
So instead of just the
Well, they were
210,
probably only gonna contact the people that had signed up,
okay.
so I'm thinking.
Yeah, I was asked that question today, you know, do I need to reach out to the entire graduating class, or should I be reaching out to the individuals who indicated, that they were attending, so.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think everybody needs to know.
Yes,
Yes.
So.
I agree.
I
Okay.
appreciate that not just coming from me, I mean, if the
Yeah.
other board feels that way.
No, absolutely.
Okay, so we're voting to approve this new plan, I assume, with that caveat added. So it's the plan that Mr. Pappas came up with, right?
It's a collective plan of the high school admin.
Right,
and
okay, well,
I'll be
the
honest
admin,
with you,
okay.
I had him working, or I had the team working on it prior to the meeting last Tuesday, because I anticipated this,
Okay,
so.
okay,
I'm
so I
very
didn't mean to
appreciative of their
exclude the other
efforts and-
people that were involved, but yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
to be able to make adjustments accordingly, so, and again, it's, we understand that there's always a possibility we could, you know, we could have still held something similar outside, but again, then we're combating the weather, and so, we felt that the indoor option and the way they have it laid out, would be, most appropriate to finally recognize and honor the class of 2020 in the Waynesburg Area School District.
Okay.
Many districts are using this model, and it's been successful.
Okay.
Sure.
Many.
I
They did
think
a great
Hershey
job.
did it in
This,
June.
they have really worked hard on this, and I know that, you know, they're getting a lot of flack, and most of it isn't their fault. But I think this model, it is gonna work fine.
Yeah, we just need to get it out there as quickly as possible,
Okay.
since it's next week.
So do we have a motion to approve
I'll move
this?
to approve.
Second.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a comment.
I have a comment.
Okay,
Go ahead, Pat.
I'd like to thank Mr. Pappas and whoever's working with him, not only for his planning or their planning, but for their replanning and their replanning and their replanning.
Planning, yes.
right.
Yeah.
Actually, my comment is actually a follow-up to Mr. McDonald's, because that has been the situation. Replanning. So I would also like to suggest to all of our seniors, graduating seniors as well as parents, that they continue checking their school email, because hopefully we do not make any more changes before next week. But you know what? It might be happening.
Okay,
So,
if there's no more comments, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approving this new graduation plan, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next item is the calendar. Dr. Klein.
Okay, the proposed calendar that we had approved back in February, as you know, probably every day since then things have changed. And one of the things that after releasing our health and safety plan last week, we had mentioned that there would be some changes that we were looking at with the calendar. One, to reflect some of the recent concerns of the state with COVID-19, and also to give us even more time to prepare. And actually, it almost goes back to, as the board would recall, a conversation I had with you as even the possibility of starting even later, the beginning of the school year. So what we're recommending is that we make these adjustments in the calendar. First, that teachers would still begin on August 11th, 12th, and 13th, our whole staff for the opening. And that we run 3 Act 80 days the following week, 19th, 20th, and 21st. And the students would start August 31st, the week of August 31st. Now, there's more to this. One of the things we have been discussing for some time is looking at a way that we can become a little more flexible in learning through remote learning days. And one thing that we wanted to also do is use those kind of hours in order to avoid having to make up snow days. And the state has allowed that. The last year, there were districts that did try that. We weren't ready for it, but they were called flexible instruction days. We're calling them remote learning days at this point. And those remote learning days are days that students would stay home and would work from home virtually and whatever else that the teacher may assign to them to do. But they would be Wednesday, September 2nd, September 16th, September 23rd, and September 30th. That means almost the week of the 9th is the week of Labor Day, so instead of having the kids come back on Tuesday and then be off Wednesday, they'd come in that whole week. So again, it gives us those 4 days to do remote learning, and we will reevaluate at that time, bring back to the board or closer to that time to see if there's a need to continue it or if that would be enough. And again, we'd like to use those days to possibly, and we're going to have to make the adjustments in order to make sure we have the total number of days, which actually would, but we'll have to make sure we have the total number of student days we need in order to make the requirement for the state of 180. Those Act 80 days, again, are days that count as student days. The remote learning days can count as student days as long as we can document how those days work for the hours and the days that the state requires. So that's we are also saying that the teachers will be in the buildings during those days, and we realize child care is a concern for them, but they're going to have to find child care. But we are saying that is a typical work day for teachers, and they will have to be in the class or in the buildings for that time. Because one, there'll be some trainings, there'll be some online things throughout the year, but those trainings we have to make sure everybody is focused, especially on those Act 80 days, on the health and safety plan and how they are to follow through with it, plus working with them of how to learn to do a stronger option of online learning. Yes.
I think those days also, at least that first month, will allow buildings principals to meet with their staff to tweak the building plan.
Yes.
You know, they can, because otherwise there's not really time to talk about what's working, what's not working. Do we need to make adjustments, you know, with what we're doing? I haven't seen the building plans yet, but I'm sure it's gonna be a work in progress.
All of these will be.
And I think it'll help with alleviating, you know, giving them time
Right.
to
People have called the health and safety plan and building plans as far as being very fluid. They're actually very dynamic because I mean it's constant of the changes that occur. So, and it wouldn't surprise me we get other announcements in the next month and we have to make other changes. So that is what we are proposing as far as changes to the calendar.
I'll move to approve.
Second?
Okay, do you have other questions for Dr. Klein? Or comments? Okay, if not, all those who are in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next item is the parent-student handbooks.
So
Dr.
as
Sternheim.
we spoke about this at the last meeting. I'd asked if anyone needed the hard copies. A request was made that if there were any changes, they should be highlighted in red, and they were included in the Friday folder. These are the normal parent-student handbooks that we pass out every year. However, we recognize that this year being very unique, there will probably be, or more than likely, a separate handbook that's regarding the you know, any type of COVID-19 plan, as well as the specific school plan relating to the health and safety of our students. So at this point, I'm simply asking for the board's approval to move forward with the approval of the elementary, middle school, and high school parent-student handbooks so that we can, in most cases at this point, we're just providing them electronically. But we do make hard copies when necessary. Families are expected to read through the information and essentially sign off that they understand the rules and regulations of each of the individual schools and levels. Questions?
Yes, so are we voting on these?
Yes.
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 It does not, my agenda does not say that we're voting on this.
we talked about at the last
Yeah.
meeting and that we were gonna vote on them tonight.
Okay, it just does not show that when I checked earlier today, so I'll just have to vote nay. It's okay, because I do have questions.
Right, because often it will say discuss and/or act.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
we should have those
that should
added,
have
those
been.
stipulations
I'm
added.
sorry, and I apologize. I did articulate that at the last board meeting.
It says action discussion
Yeah.
under type.
Well, it says action discussion, but there's nothing on the right-hand side of my agenda that says.
Yeah, I don't see that either.
But it does say action discussion. I apologize for that. However, these handbooks, the middle school and the high school look like the same handbooks as last year, and I think,
Oh, yeah, under type.
I have some problems with that because we should not start out the school year that way. Sorry.
Okay.
Well, just because things have changed.
Well, there's a
Separate
separate,
handbook.
there's a separate
Like,
handbook.
in other
for-
words, this is like, we haven't made a lot of changes to this handbook because this handbook will probably, I think the changes were in red that were different. So it's almost as if we're going to have two separate handbooks, or handbooks like the school plan will look different. It wouldn't be embedded in the parent-teacher handbook.
Okay, let me just voice one complaint I have.
Sure.
So, right now, we're going back to school. The high school schedule says that there's a homeroom period at the beginning of the day. Why do we have a homeroom period for, what, between 10 and 15 minutes? We're gonna bring all our students in, put them in one classroom. Oh, then we're gonna move them through the hallways to another classroom. You know, if this is for the 2021, I think it needs to be as accurate as possible, and guess what? I think it needs to be all of 2021. And
Okay, so
there
I
are
can
some
clarify
things I
that,
question.
that there
Go ahead.
is, within the WASHA school plan, there is no homeroom. We eliminated it.
Oh, well,
part
why
of
is
the
it in the
first.
handbook?
Know what?
No homeroom. We're
We haven't
making,
seen them.
Well, that's great, but it's still in the handbook.
yeah, I mean, I guess I'm still trying to be hopeful, Mrs. Zimmerman, that maybe we would be able to attend in a more traditional format. Like, so the individual school handbook is different than the school plan.
Okay.
So, I mean, once the school plans come out, if you would like, or you're asking that we embed the new school plans within a handbook, we can definitely work through that. These handbooks are sort of, like, they've been established and they.
Yeah, for years and
and,
years.
and a lot of the stuff is very typical, you know, and like if you wanna add or you want to include it in.
What, excuse me, why can't we just say that the school plan will supersede the handbook?
Well, yeah, it will.
In lieu of a plan, the handbook would stand, but since we're all having building plans, they would take the priority and they would be the definitive if there's a conflict.
Like, for example, like, you might read in the handbook, like, this is where the student common area is, or this is how we're doing, this is a normal cafeteria procedure. And within the school plans, that's going to look
Okay.
different. So, like, I wanna get back to normal someday. So I wanna have a normal handbook and then maybe the reopening
Plan.
2020, 2021. 'Cause eventually, I would hope that we would be able to go back to a more traditional handbook expectations in terms of student movement,
Okay.
dismissal. So it's going to be two separate entities.
I understand that. I still don't know if I can approve it, but that's okay. Thank you for your explanation.
All right.
Okay, so we had a motion on this, correct? We didn't have a motion on this. Do we have a motion to approve the parent? Thank you. No.
Second.
Ms. Sullivan seconds. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Now, Mrs. Harold,
Okay, you got two nays there, Ms. Kuzer? Yes.
could I just make a comment?
Sure.
I think maybe what Mrs. Zimmerman was referring to is, I went back through the last 3 agendas. What's missing on this agenda is there's no recommended action
Yes.
on any of the items. So, like, it would have said recommended action, approve the graduation plan, recommended action, approve the calendar. It's been in the other agendas, but on this agenda, that piece is missing.
Well, you also have this agenda versus this agenda. This agenda is a lot more detailed. It has it. This one that we get
It
doesn't have any recommendations.
But this one doesn't either.
No,
This agenda for this meeting is different than all the other ones.
Okay.
So, are you aware of
actually,
that?
I have that, personnel, we're voting, PSBA membership, we're voting, resocialization of music, we're voting. I mean, you know, I have.
Once you click into it.
Right, but once you click into
Yeah.
it, there should say, there's a type, and then there's
Right.
another place that says recommended action,
Right.
and then there should be a sentence of what the action is. This
Right.
agenda doesn't have that.
Well, it does on the next one,
But
actually.
Where?
Orbit,
Okay,
but it did in the previous one.
no, it
It's-
doesn't. It
Mine
doesn't.
does.
it's okay. I still have some problems with those handbooks as they
Mine
are
does
now
not-
written.
mine does not
So,
have that.
so I can't say yes.
Are you on the
It's okay.
authenticated site, yours, or are you on the public?
Maybe maybe that's a
Public
problem.
site doesn't have it.
This is the word that needs to be to begin with, because there isn't enough of specific information in here about COVID restrictions, guidelines, safety, security, and all that. There should be a little extra in here about absenteeism and things like that. So I understand what you are saying, and that's why I voted nay also.
Okay, and my thought is, we can have supplemental because things are gonna be changing over and over again, except I can't believe if this is all computerized, why we can't why we can't change little things, print it out as accurately as possible. So yes, I have some problems. Those are the two that I know best, the high school and middle school, so thank you very much, Mrs. Rieger.
I'm basically concerned with elementary and busing. There are many concerns.
Yeah, so anyway,
So would it
It's
be
okay.
helpful
It already
if we
passed.
have our traditional handbook, and at the back, we have like COVID-19 reopening, I don't know what to call it, so that would supersede the handbook.
It should be on the front, not the back.
The plan, right, the plan will supersede the handbook, okay? So unless you want, I don't have any problem with this at all, because the plan is gonna supersede it. So if you wanna make changes easily to the plan, that makes more sense to me than trying to make changes to the handbook,
okay.
okay? So,
The plan is always going to, at least my understanding, Dr. Klein, the plan has to continue to be fluid.
Yeah,
The school handbook is not necessarily fluid.
yeah.
right,
So there's certain things that are in that handbook that are gonna be applicable and different in the reopening plan. And there's other things that are simply not, like where to find the lost and found is going to be the same
Right.
place. Or,
Right.
you know,
Now it came up.
how to apply for senior privilege. You know, there's certain things that aren't going to change.
right.
But then there's our specific things, like say with busing, with dismissal, with the cafeteria, with even movement in the hallway, you know,
Right.
those things will change. But again, I'm trying to be real optimistic here that our handbook will eventually be our handbook, and this will be something of the past.
Okay, may I just make one comment, and I'm not gonna tell you what it is, but previously I had expressed to the middle school principal something that I felt should be changed in the middle school after having worked there, and has not been changed, so I can't vote to approve this because this is a real concern of mine.
Okay. And
Has nothing to do with COVID, nothing, okay? But it's okay, my vote still stands, and I think we've discussed it enough.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next item, which is the Orbit Software Boss Support Agreement. Is that Mr. Holtzman?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. This is our annual agreement for Orbit's Boss software. This is what we use for programming and tracking of our routes and students, as well as using the data for completing a number of state required reports. So we're asking for just a 1 year. They do offer a 3 year, but I think just doing 1 year at a time gives us a little bit more flexibility as a district.
Motion?
Move to approve.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Questions for Mr. Holtzman? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. PSBA membership, whoever that is.
I'm just, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter to me.
You know, again, this is, Pennsylvania School Board Association's membership, which the board has belonged to, I think, for a number of years. It's due again, and I guess that's what we're coming back to, ask you if this is something you'd like to continue. We're recommending to keep it going. They give good information, but it is a hefty price tag.
Ooh, it sure is.
And it is the same price as the.
Right, I was gonna say,
previous
that's what
Yeah,
it's
they-
been.
year. Yeah, they did not increase it. And I know there was a question about some board members that this might have been on a previous agenda. That was actually board docs, so it's kind of like a PSBA type product. So I think that's what made it a little confusing for all of us, is that we did approve board docs, but not the actual PSBA license or renewal.
Isn't there
membership.
liability insurance involved in that?
I think
There would be some liability insurance in there, travel insurance, certainly for board members. I think you're covered under the travel policies, as you're going to and from meetings and such, so.
I see it as we may not use them every day, but when you
Right.
need them, they're nice to have.
That's
Like I
right.
was on some webinars and some forums with some other board presidents that I thought was helpful, talking about what they're doing. The attorney, we can call the attorney. So I see it as, it's policies. I mean, it's
Policies.
pricey,
That
but I think
Right.
I am supporting it.
Oh,
And you have board
move to
training
approve.
now, which is a new requirement that they provide as well. So, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, and the music plan, Dr. Sternerheim.
Okay, socialization of WASH's marching band. If you go to your board doc, the information there was what was presented to the board last week in your blue folder. So what we did, Dr. Klein and myself looked at it and we made some changes, and this handout reflects the changes so you have a copy here if you want to take one and pass it. Very, very thankful of the music department for developing this. They modeled it after PIAA. We went through and made some changes indicating that participants will need to undergo COVID-19 health screening. That's in number 1, which is different, but that would be a parental responsibility similar to what is reflected in our school plan. We also I've been in communication with Mr. Ritter indicating that we are going to model a parent waiver similar to what we utilize for athletics. He was not familiar with the actual waiver, and I told him we would work through it. I gave him a copy of the athletic waiver, but essentially what this is to allow our marching band students the ability to come back in and begin practices under these conditions, recognizing that the PIAA is now allowing practices, and this would allow for marching band practice as well. So in terms of changes, if you're looking at the handout, we simply changed number 1. In their plan, they were asking, or they were going to actually conduct the health screenings, and we're saying that as a parental responsibility. We also went through and took information out regarding some phase 2 that wasn't necessarily reflective of the PA state green phase. But more or less it mirrors what we're doing with our student athletes at this point. The recommendation is to approve this with the understanding that they would also be creating a student waiver that would mimic what we had our student athletes, or our parents and our students athletes sign for to begin practice on July 1st.
When you made those changes, did you work with the music department? Like, did you sit down with the music department and talk about it and discuss it? Or is this going to be new to them when they see it?
Yeah, it will be new to them. The problem that we had with that particular thing was that it didn't mirror the district's plan, because if it doesn't, they're gonna have to go back and change it anyhow.
So the primary change was, had to do with requiring, they were saying that they were gonna conduct the screenings, the medical screenings, and that is in our school, in our district plan, in our school plans, that is going to be a parental responsibility. And that would be more reflective of what we're asking our student athlete families to do at this point.
Any other questions? We had a motion, right? Do we have a motion? We didn't have a motion. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, good enough. Okay, now, I have the agenda that doesn't have public comment on it next, but since it's up there, if anybody, we'll go ahead, if anybody would like to make a public comment at this point. Yes.
I just want to ask a clarifying question if I can.
Okay.
We were talking about the start of school, so I just want to make sure I have it. Teachers are going the regular Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The following week, students would have started Wednesday. Teachers are going Wednesday, Thursday, Friday only. And then students aren't starting till the 31st.
Yes.
What's happening the week of the 24th?
Whatever you
Everyone's
want.
off?
Whatever you want, yeah.
Okay, just wanted to check. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, if not, then we don't have a further executive session, I don't think. So, and if we do, we're not coming back. So, anybody have a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, sure. So moved.
Thank you. So we have Dr. Royer, Ms. Sullivan. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
We now have facilities meeting.